What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Met Central Podcast, episode 80. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. Normally, the way that we go about these podcasts is we break these things down game by game. We talk about, what went right, what went wrong in a series, and then we talk about the series coming up and, you know, just give our overall thoughts on the series that just occurred. That's not what's going to happen today. I have no graphics like I usually do for the game by game breakdowns because there's no reason to go game by game when you know the story. If you're watching a Mets channel, you know what's going on right now. You know that this team is playing garbage baseball, and this is going to be more of a open panel kind of episode. And if any of you, by some ridiculous chance, which I don't know how it could be possible at this point, if any of you are Eric Chavez defenders, Eric Chavez truthers, if you are blue and orange teamers, if you are bring the pom poms out, everything's going to be all right, then I'm going to tell you just click off the episode here because you are not going to like a single word that we say throughout this episode. But we got so much to get into in this episode here where we're going to vent and give our thoughts overall with this team, even though it's going to be built on frustration, to be honest with you, from the post game Matt did yesterday, from the post games that I did from the series. Leave a like, subscribe. You guys know what to do. All I'll say is this. I think that getting no hit yesterday would have truly been the point where it's like it's really rock bottom, but I still feel like we're already there because who cares that Juan Soto hit that home run? Like, really, who gives a flying fuck? So, where do we begin, though? Do we begin with the fact that you have the manager that is both telling fables to the fan base and also saying stuff where it's pretty much you could read between the lines like, yeah, the hitting coach is the problem here. And we've been talking about this since April, May, whatever it is at this point. We've been talking about this all season long. And even when they were winning games, even when the record showed, oh, they're 20 games above 500, you're just overreacting to overreact. There is a reason we look at the not only the quantity of wins, but the quality of wins, because the quality of wins is more important. The quality shows what is more sustainable, what's going to result in more wins, where the quantity, that's just a number at the current moment. And when you have the manager saying things along the lines of, well, we have an approach, we're just not executing right now, or basically saying we are communicating with the hitters that, but there's just poor execution. That tells you what more does David Stearns need to hear to say, hey, the message isn't getting to these hitters. Maybe we should try making a change. And I want to make this abundantly clear because every time we have this conversation, I like to make it clear. We are not sitting here and suggesting firing Eric Chavez all of a sudden is going to make this team go from one of the worst offenses in baseball with the runners in scoring position to one of the best. But it is better to do something versus nothing. And need I remind everyone that we are finding ourselves in the same story that the Mets have found themselves in 3 of the 4 years now that Eric Chavez has been the hitting coach. Do I need to remind everyone what happened in 2022 down the stretch? I don't think I do. Do I need to remind everyone what happened in 2023 with this team offensively that pushed them into being sellers? Last year, even, there were signs of a bipolar offense. There were signs of things that weren't sustainable. But then JD Martinez comes into the fold, and all of a sudden we hear players like Mark Vientos praising the work that JD Martinez did and saying, man, this guy really helped me out. Like, he knows what he's talking about. The credit never goes to Eric Chavez. Pete Alonso this offseason worked with outside hitting coaches, not what the Mets have in-house. And now this year, you don't have the veteran leadership of JD Martinez, which, again, this is why it falls on the players too. These guys need to grow up and be able to lead, especially with the money some of these guys are making. They need to be able to lead themselves without JD Martinez being here. But at the end of the day, one of the common denominators in these fallouts is Eric Chavez being the hitting coach. Again, if it does not work, then you have your answer that it's a player problem. But it is easier to replace one guy versus an organization filled of hitters. Start there, see what happens, and if it's still bad, again, you have your answer that this group isn't good enough, which I already have questions about this group as is. Matt, I'll let you jump in.
I mean, I kind of already covered everything like I wanted to say yesterday, but I mean, it's just a basic rehash of what we've been seeing over not even the whole year, but the past 4 years. Like I've said, it's a 4-year sample size of Eric Chavez being incapable of being a good hitting coach. It's not 1 year, it's not 2 years, because then at that point you could say, okay, maybe he needs just a little bit more time. But when you have 4 years, and over those 4 years, it's consistently shown that you're not able to get the best out of these hitters. And look, people point to, like 2022, say, okay, like maybe that lineup wasn't as deep as this lineup was per se. That lineup didn't have a Juan Soto per se. But the thing of a hitting coach, and we've seen it with other teams, whether it's, the Tampa Bay Rays, the Atlanta Braves, the LA Dodgers, those teams, and I know people point to, those teams have superstars all throughout not so much the Tampa Bay Rays, but more of the Braves and the Dodgers when they were going through their really good periods. And people, like I said, they'll say, but those teams had, all-star hitters throughout their lineup. Okay, sure, they did. But there was times where those teams brought in under the radar bats, and the hitting coaches, after they brought them into the hitting lab, they looked at the film, broke them down, look at their swings, and say, okay, this is what you can correct here. This is what you can correct here. Maybe, raise the bat a little bit more over the shoulder. And all those small adjustments led them to be better hitters. Like for example, last year at the 2024 trade deadline, no one can sit here and tell us that they expected Tommy Edman to be this amazing addition for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Listen, Tommy Edman's a little good player, a little depth player. I agree with that. But no one expected him to bat 350 in the NLCS and drove in multiple huge runs in that series. But what happened? They brought him into the hitting lab. They're hitting coaches, whatever their names are. I don't know off the top of my head. But they said, okay, Tommy, here's what you got to do to improve your swing, and you could be a better offensive player. Did that, had a huge postseason run, ended up winning a World Series, and got himself a nice little payday in the offseason. But over here, hitters, they come to die. I mean, listen, I'm not saying that Juan Soto is all of a sudden a bad hitter, but when your fastball batting average drops from like 333 to 265, and your slugging off fastballs drops from like 745 to about in the mid 500s, to me, that is not a skills thing. Because over the course of a year, I just don't see how Juan Soto could drop that much in both those statistical aspects in terms of hitting fastballs. To me, that's a coaching thing. And again, people will come here and say, hitting coaches, they don't matter, yada yada. Again, we will reiterate this. Then why does every team employ a hitting coach? Why do these guys get paid salaries?
As dugout decorations.
Yeah, because at that point, if you're not useful, then teams are just wasting money. And why the hell would you do that? Why would you waste a salary on someone that's not useful? And again, again, I will say this. Like in certain okay, let me kind of restart from the beginning. Do the players need to be held accountable to a certain point? Absolutely, because they should still be performing better than what they currently are. But it doesn't help when all these guys are underperforming in every single offensive aspect. And again, it's not just one or two guys. Because if it was just one or two guys throughout the lineup, you could say, okay, it's not so much the hitting coach. It's just, these guys aren't exactly the greatest players. But when it's 1 through 9 and every single player is struggling with the exact same problem, then it tells me it's not so much of a player issue. Again, do they still have to be held accountable to a certain point? Absolutely. But like I said, when it's 1 through 9, when it's everybody with the same issue, that's more of a philosophical standpoint than it is a skill issue for me. Because like I said, there is no way, and again, I reiterate, talked about this yesterday when I did the post game show. Look, listen, maybe this team isn't as good and as dominant as we first thought coming into the year, but you can't tell me they're as bad as they are playing right now. Like, I simply refuse to believe that. And listen, if the Mets do end up changing hitting coaches, whether it's, at the end of the year, even though Chavez shouldn't be fucking living to see the end of the year, he should have been fired last night. Like, right as soon as the final out was recorded, he should have been out, and he should have been fucking, that trebuchet that they were building outside of Citi Field for Frankie Montas, he should have been the fucking first one on that trebuchet and launched him to fucking Afghanistan, China. I really don't give a fuck. Send them to fucking Siberia to deal with the fucking tigers over there for all I care. But it's just, again, it's like, and I talked about this also yesterday, and we've talked about this many times, even throughout this whole season. I think it's too late now if they fire Chavez for this team to see an impact, because like you brought up, if they fire Chavez now, we're not going to see, at the snap of a finger, this team solve all their offensive issues. It's not going to happen. Like I said, it's too late. It's already August 7th. But it's all about getting the cancerous voice out of that clubhouse, get them out, and then go whatever. And again, whatever happens for the rest of the season. We'll see how far they go. And then next year, you go into the offseason, whether it's, calling up and promoting the AAA hitting coach, whether it's getting a replacement, let that new guy implement his own hitting philosophy, and then we'll see the changes. And then if not, then again, like you said, then it is a player problem. But to me, looking through this lineup, like I said, maybe they're not as dominant as we first thought, but there's no way that you can convince me to tell me that they're this bad. I refuse to believe it.
Chavez should have been gone after that Pittsburgh series. Like, that's when the line should have been drawn there, which again, I point back to, I would do anything to change the outcomes of those 3 games that they won in late June, because if you talk about a 16, 17 game losing streak, they wouldn't have had a choice but to fire Chavez at that point. Now, like you said, it is probably too late to where it's actually going to make an impact for this year. Maybe it could help if you do it sooner rather than later by October, but again, it's not a guarantee you're getting to October at this rate, which is a whole different conversation in itself now. You brought up other teams, though, like the Dodgers, Rays. The team that I want to point to as the example is the Houston Astros, who have been decimated by injuries all season long, whether it's Paredes getting hurt, whether Jeremy Pena missed the stretch, whether it's Altuve, who's not performing at the level that we are accustomed to Jose Altuve performing, Carlos Correa going back there and starting to perform better. It's like, wow, you look at that lineup on paper, yeah, the Astros are probably not that great of a team. And a lot of people thought, okay, this is the year, surely, that they drop off. Nope. They find a way to stay in it, and they still put up some of the best offensive numbers in baseball. Why? Because they have a hitting philosophy there. It's just that simple. And again, I think that some of the players do come in the question here, because I'm tired of hearing from both the players and the manager, the talent here is too good to not be thriving right now. Oh, but I believe in the talent. That's great that you believe in yourselves. That's great that you have talent. But like we talked about with a certain other team that we root for, talent does not mean anything if you're not going to play the right way and you're not going to win games. You could have all the talent in the world. It does not matter if it does not formulate into the result that you're looking for, which is ultimately winning baseball games and winning them at a clip that shows sustainability. So I can't sit here. And then you have the manager too, who's doing the same exact thing that we talk about with the the other team we root for, where Gerard Gallant, we knocked on him because all he would do, he would think changing the lineup is an adjustment. The same thing's happening here, where you have the manager thinking, oh yeah, well, if we go back to Lindor in the leadoff spot, this should work. And then they almost get no hit. It's almost like there needs to be a change in philosophy here. And I'm tired of hearing them talk about how they're not hitting fastballs well. I'm tired of hearing about how they're staring too much at fastballs. But where is the disconnect between the fact that it's being addressed and it's a known issue, and then the execution not being there. Again, it has to be the voice that is delivering the message. And I don't understand how Chavez didn't lose his job once Lindor had to beg Chavez to do his job. Like that should have been the final straw there, but no. And then you would think, like I brought up before, all the other players praising JD Martinez. It's like, oh, okay, Chavez clearly isn't doing anything, so maybe now he gets fired. No, and then the final line really should be right now when he's arguing with fans and Instagram DMs and everything, which is just, again, I don't know if that burner account's truly him. If it is, then he should be gone yesterday with the things that has been said on that account. I don't know if it is. I don't think it is. But either way, there's proof that he is arguing with fans from his actual Instagram account in DMs and still being snarky and arrogant. That should be a fireable offense. You work for an organization, a professional sports organization. You should be holding yourself to a way higher standard, and you should be way more professional than you are displaying. And honestly, shame on Stearns and Steve Cohen for not holding this guy accountable for that. Because at the very least, there should be something said to him about how he should not be doing that at the very least. But the fact that nothing is being said and he's still going out there and acting this way, honestly, shame on the owner and the GM for not doing anything about that.
Yeah, listen, you brought up the point of the message is not getting across to the hitters. I argue there is no message because again, when your hitting coach's philosophy is whatever happens happens, that's basically telling me that the message is go out there, have fun, and guess what? If you hit it, maybe you hit it over the wall, maybe you hit a ground ball, maybe you pop it up, maybe you hit a little dribbler to the pitcher. I don't know, but that's not a philosophy that's going to win you ball games. Again, like how many times, and I got tired of this, but it's like we were at the game yesterday, and it's like how many times could you hit ground ball after ground ball after ground ball after ground ball? It's like this team doesn't put the ball in the air. And sorry, in modern day baseball, like I don't care what people say to me about, how teams played in the 80s and the 70s and the 60s and parts of the early 90s. Guess what? We're not in that era anymore. It's 2025. Teams win now because of the long ball. Listen, back then you could get away with hitting a ton of ground balls and making the opposing defense work. You know why? Because the baseball diamonds back then weren't as pristine and clean and well kept as they are now. Now you don't see all these random, hops everywhere. I mean, sure, they still happen from time to time, but not as much as it was back then. Now you actually have to, put the ball in the air, make the outfielders work, put the ball into the gaps. This philosophy of hitting ground balls, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And plus, players now are much better defensively than they were back then. Like training methods have improved and all this. Players are more athletic. Players are more are more in shape and stuff. Like it's a totally different. Like you can't compare that era of baseball now. It doesn't mix well whatsoever. And again, it's
Before
just
you
like
your next point, sorry to cut you off, but the other thing I want to bring up with that also is that we have data now that shows where your ground ball tendencies are to. So it's not like the old days where it's like these guys didn't have the information of where guys hit the ground balls as much, so you were able to go gap to gap a little bit more versus now.
no, yeah, no, yeah, 100%. And like I said, like there is no message to the players. Like how many times last year when players were doing post game interviews on the field after games ended, and whether it was like guys like Francisco Lindor, Mark Vientos, other guys like that, they always credited JD Martinez. Never heard a word that Eric Chavez was responsible for helping them hit. It was always JD Martinez. Right there, I'm sorry, that's a red flag. And then, like you said, when Francisco Lindor basically has to go to Chavez and say, "Hey, bro, listen, do your job." Like when a player has to tell a coach to do their job, that coach should be fired right away. Like that's not even a debate. That's not even a debate. And listen, like like obviously we saw yesterday with the whole quotes in the post game press conference where Mendoza, like I said, Mendoza basically said it's on Chavez without saying it's on Chavez. And listen, I get in a perfect world, we would like to, basically we would like Mendy to call it Chavez, but at the end of the day, Mendoza is an employee of a professional sports franchise. He has to stay professional in those, in those press conferences. But it's like, how much of a red flag can you basically say it's a red flag without basically saying that Chavez is responsible? Because it's like saying that the guys are not prepared, they don't know what's coming, and even when they do know what's coming, they don't know how to react and hit well in those situations. Well, again, that's on the hitting coach. Hitting coaches are supposed to get the players prepared for their at bats. I mean, but and another thing, like seriously, when you watch this team play from out number 1 to out 27, none of those guys, when they get in the box, they look prepared. Because, like I said yesterday, the old number 1 pitch, modern day baseball and baseball in general, when you look when you look through the whole history, what's the number 1 pitch that a pitcher usually goes to? His fastball. So that's the pitch, especially when you're in a 2-strike count or a 1-strike count, or whenever an opposing pitcher's in trouble, whether they're in a 3-ball count. Most likely, that pitcher is going to go to a fastball. So tell me why this team is statistically one of the worst fastball hitting teams in the league. They're either bottom 3 or bottom 5. And then whenever they're up there to at bat, whenever they're up there to hit, they're always laying on fastballs. They're always swinging over them. They're always taking them right down the middle. And the fact that they're sitting on sliders out of the zone in the dirt, breaking balls and off-speed pitches. How are you not sitting fastball and then adjusting to whether if the ball is either a breaking ball or an off-speed pitch? Like to me, that's hitting philosophy 101. And I'm not a hitting coach, but I could just tell you that from a fact. I mean, you're taught this, from when you're a little kid, being trained, and when you're working on your hitting skills, like whether that's in the batting cages or with other coaches. And the fact that this guy is basically telling them, to try and draw walks and hit singles and hit to the opposite field. Like, again, that's not going to win you games in baseball. Look at all the other top teams. It's doubles, home runs. Sure, sprinkling a couple walks here and there. Plate discipline is a very important aspect of the game. But whenever this team is up at bat and they're in a 3-1 count, or they're in a 2-2 count, they're always looking to walk. They're never looking to be aggressive. And when they are being aggressive, like we've talked about before, it's always in the wrong situations that they're being aggressive. So the whole thing is half-ass backwards. And this is why you see them statistically being one of the worst offenses in the league, especially with runners in scoring position.
Yeah, last year we talked about how it's just like an old school philosophy, and it's clear as day. And we talked about it on the way to the game for the finale of the series, how with the hitting approach, where it's like these guys will see someone walk in front of them, and then they decide, you know what, let's be aggressive now at the plate and swing first pitch and then hit into a ground out. Where what you should be doing, if a pitcher clearly doesn't have control, is then you actually try to go for your walks. It's just so ridiculous. And then, I mean, speaking of which, Mark Vientos has 1 walk, by the way, in the past 30 games. So these guys are looking for walks, but they're not even drawing them. It's completely ridiculous. I want to get to the chat just because I don't want to ignore you guys completely here, just to see what you guys are saying. Ray is saying no rainbows and unicorns is right. I'll sum it up for you. Chavez has murdered the bats. He's an abomination of a hitting coach. Spot on there. Just scrolling through and seeing what else there is to go through. We got Will in the chat, Carol. We got 2 Rays in the chat. Doug, what's going on? And yeah, I mean, Mendoza probably would have been fired if it got to that point, but at the very least, the hitting coach definitely goes at that point. It's BS that he isn't going anywhere. What do we have to lose? Like you guys said, the AAA hitting coach has done more. I mean, Alvarez, that's the thing that's driving me insane. It's like, this isn't me saying Stearns is a dumb executive, and this isn't me calling for his job, but like, how in the world is he not seeing this? I'm genuinely mind blown that someone as smart as we think Stearns is not seeing these glaring issues and not seeing how much of an idiot this guy is.
Yeah,
I
we've also heard from his time in Milwaukee. He typically doesn't like to do in season firing, which listen, I get that to a certain point because there is points where it could be seen as reactionary. But again, when you have a 4-year sample size of Chavez coming up short time after time after time again, like he should have been let go. And again, maybe if he was fired in June, when the Mets were going through that brutal stretch, maybe like I said, like how right now, if like I said, if I think they fire him, it's probably a little too late. But you know what? In June, if you fire him, maybe it's not too late. Maybe there is still time to salvage something and to implement, a hitting philosophy on these players. But now, like I said, it's simply too late. And another thing with not firing coaches mid-season. I mean, okay, cool. Like, and listen, I get that in baseball it doesn't work all the time, but prime example, and I know it's a little different because this is a example of a manager being fired compared to a hitting coach. But 2022, the Philadelphia Phillies were struggling severely earlier in the year. What happened? Fired Joe Girardi, promoted Rob Thompson to manager, and they went on a run, went to the World Series, came up short. But it does show you that, and again, it doesn't happen all the time. It only happens from time to time. But what's what's the harm in at least trying something? Like that is my point. Listen, as of right now, this team's probably not going to win a World Series. I think we can all sit here and agree on that fact, unless some miracle happens and they just somehow happen, to turn on the offense, which we've been saying that maybe they'll do it this season, and it's August 7th right now, and it still doesn't happen. So most likely it's not going to ever happen. But again, what is the harm in trying something? Like I said, if you call up the AAA hitting coach and you promote him here, okay, if it doesn't work, fine. You just next year when you go into the offseason, you demote him back down to AAA and you get in a new replacement. Because like I said, to me, no one could do worse than Eric Chavez at this point. Like I said, like I said yesterday, Stevie Wonder's blind. He could have freaking implemented better hitting philosophy than Chavez. Helen Keller, who was blind and deaf, she could implement a better fucking hitting philosophy than Eric Chavez. Like I said, to me, and again, I'm not a baseball executive. I like Stearns, but I simply cannot agree on why he's so hesitant to get rid of Chavez, especially when Chavez is not his guy. He didn't hire Eric Chavez. Billy Epler hired Eric Chavez in 2022. So for me, the hesitancy to not even fire a guy that you hired, that to me is just confusing me.
Yeah, especially when we saw prospect wise, he gave up on guys that weren't his guys, but coaching wise, for some reason, this guy gets to stay. And like, even if you disagree with us on the Chavez front and you somehow like his hitting philosophy, you can't possibly tell me, like, just from purely sending a message standpoint, like, at the very least on that front, he needs to go. Which, by the way, as we're doing this right now, Carson actually tweeted um, 3 most commonly used pitches: four seam, sinker, slider. Mets team run value versus these pitches: four seam dash 7.3, the league dash 5.9, sinker dash 7.7, league dash 7.3, slider 20.7, the league dash 5.5. So it's fine though, right? It's fine. It's not Chavez's fault at all. Um, I just I can't agree with the whole it's a lineup construction issue because it's every single player.
Yeah.
It is every single player. This has nothing to do with an imbalanced lineup or whatever you want to profile it as. Because individually, these guys are having respectable numbers. Like Pete Alonso has respectable numbers individually. Juan Soto individually, respectable numbers. Lindor, despite the injury and despite some of the numbers coming back down, respectable numbers. Nimmo, McNeil's, you could argue, is having the best year of his career right now. But it's not formulating into wins. Why? Because the hitting philosophy is garbage.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if this was simply a lineup construction, by now we would have seen a lineup that worked because we've seen this team try many different variations of lineups throughout the year. We've seen Marte lead off. We've seen Vientos in the 2-hole. We've seen Nimmo in the 4-hole. We've seen Nimmo leading off. We've seen Lindor leading off. We've seen Soto in the 2-hole. We've seen Soto in the 3-hole. We saw Pete hitting third. Then we saw Pete hitting cleanup. We saw Alvarez going up and down within the lineup. So clearly to me, because there's only so many combinations before you can fall on something. And they still haven't found something that completely works. There's times where it looks like it works for like a little bit, where it works for like a week or maybe a game or two or a 3-game stretch, but it always goes down to the same problem, to where they can't hit with runners in scoring position. And again, like we were saying, it's a 1 through 9 issue. If it was just certain guys, if like I said, if it was just 2 guys in the lineup, then sure, I could say the lineup's fine. It's just they need to improve on these 2 guys. But when it's a 1 through 9 and everyone has the same problem, that's coaching. That's a philosophical problem.
Yep, and yeah, again, like, it's just clear as day that again, the point I made earlier, you could replace one guy, you cannot replace a entire roster. And if his argument's more roster construction wise, I can't sit here and agree with that either, because you're telling me that you have 5 guys that are making numbers starting with double digits for millions. I mean, 6, I guess, actually, because I forgot to include Marte, who's a platoon DH at this rate. But you need to get production within the margins. Like, you're telling me that it's not a hitting philosophy thing, that every single young guy is not working out? They couldn't luck their way into one of them being a respectable player, you're telling me? Nonsense. And okay, yeah, McNeil and Nimmo were their best when they were hitting line drives through the gaps. Now they think they're home run hitters. Tell me where that led them then, when they were gap to gap hitters. This team wasn't making the playoffs when they were doing that. So it's nonsense. And home run or nothing, you can't tell me this is a home run or nothing offense. You're not paying attention then if that's your analysis. Watch these games. I'm sorry, and no disrespect to you, Will, because you're always in the chat here and active, but you cannot tell me that this is an all or nothing offense when we're not seeing anything showing that. If anything, they're trying way too much to go gap to gap. So I don't know where you're getting that one from.
No, you can't tell me when the majority of the balls hit on this team is ground balls that they're being all or nothing hitters. You cannot tell me that, because even then, it's not like this team strikes out a lot. I mean, sure, there's certain times, where they take fastballs down the middle and they swing over them, but look at the majority of their outs. It's ground balls. That's what it is. And again, second lowest, team barrel percentage in the league. So that's telling me they're not trying to hit home runs. It's ground balls. It's light contact pop-ups, light contact flyouts, or little dribblers that are in the infield. So this thing of them trying to hit home runs, it's nonsense.
If you're telling me that they're all or nothing because they're striking out a lot, then I'm sorry. You're just not paying attention to what's going on up there. Like we talked about earlier, they are trying to hunt for walks way too much, where they are taking pitches way too much, and it's putting them behind in counts, which is why you're seeing them strike out. It's not because they're swinging for the fences and missing on so many pitches. It's because of the fact that, like, how many times during Nimmo's 7 strikeouts a series was he just watching fastballs go down the middle? Juan Soto watched the fastball go right down the dick. That's not home run or nothing. That's trying to draw walks way too much. That's lack of situational hitting and putting themselves behind in counts way too much, because they'll go behind 0-1 and then just stare at a fastball right down the heart. That's not home run or nothing. It's not. I'm sorry. I disagree completely with the whole, they're swinging for the fences thing. If that was the case, this offense would be at least slightly better than where they are. We could have that conversation if they were hitting more balls in the air, hitting more warning track balls. We could sit here and have the conversation if that's the case, but why is it that in that game, the first game where they rallied back, Pete Alonso was clearly looking to just hit a ball to the opposite field and get a bloop single. Mike Sarbaugh, by the way, he should have sent Taylor. Like, with the way that this team's performing and with the way this team performs with runners in scoring position, man, not that it would have mattered because a win at this point might have been more damaging than a loss. But who the hell knows?
Yeah, we were. Yeah, I was going to bring that up. Initially, when I was first watching the game, because I was watching the game at home on my TV, I was okay with holding Taylor, but after looking at the instant replay, and especially with the zoomed out one of seeing the whole field in perspective, should he have sent him? Yeah, he probably should, and he probably would have made it. But to me, and again, this is a whole another issue. Again, well, there's two issues here I'm going to bring up. One, after Lindor hits that double, and now it's second and third. Okay, they walk Soto, but then all Pete, and I know Pete was 4 for 4, and he had a great night that night. But all you got to do is just hit a deep fly ball to the outfield, and you win the game. And then I forgot who came up there after him, whether he was McNeil or Vientos. But again, and come through with a hit. It's like they just don't come through time after time. And then again, the other thing I was going to bring up, because let's all remember, Francisco Alvarez was leading off that inning. Hits a hard single up through the middle. What happens after that? Tyrone Taylor comes into pinch run. If you're pinch running Tyrone Taylor for Francisco Alvarez, why are you not trying to steal second base with him? It doesn't make any sense why he wasn't trying to steal. Listen, if you get thrown out, you get thrown out. Fine. It is what it is. But be aggressive. Try to take that extra bag. It just doesn't make any sense. If you weren't trying to steal, why even take out Alvarez in the first place? Because then you're losing a valuable bat. Because we can all agree, even though Alvarez statistically hasn't had the greatest year and he's been better since being called up, I still like Francisco Alvarez bat a lot more than Luis Torrens. We can all agree on that. So to me, it doesn't make any sense why Taylor wasn't told to steal second base there. And listen, if he does steal second base and Lindor rips that ball into right field to the wall, guess what? Tyrone Taylor scores. Mets win that ball game. It's the simple little things that holds this team back, even apart from the whole hitting catastrophe of this team. It's the simple little things that hold them back. And right after they lost that game in the fashion they did, I looked at it the same way as they did the Giants series. I looked at the same way as the first game of the Padres series, the first game of the Rays series. I'm like, they lost the game in that fashion, they're gonna get swept. And what happened? They got swept. Like it's just the patterns and the whole
streakiness.
The whole streakiness. It just completely lined up. And like I said, I called the ref and I'm like, yeah, they're getting swept. And lo and behold, they got swept.
Yeah, that your argument for why or with stealing with Taylor is my argument for why they should have sent him. Because if Alvarez was on the bases, he goes first to third there. The whole reason Taylor's on this team is to run. That's it. He's here to run and play defense. Why are you not getting aggressive there when, again, this team, forget about who was coming up. You know that they cannot hit with runners in scoring position. You have an entire season of data to back that up. Get aggressive and go for the damn win. And like Carson's saying, just to go back to that point, if they were all or nothing, they'd be top 10 in whiff percentage and top 10 in home runs. A structured process evens out. They don't have one. Exactly. That's why I don't understand where we're getting this whole, they're home run or nothing, which I was actually about to look that up. So thank you for giving me the stat that, because I wanted to figure out where they are in whiff rate. I had a feeling they're not high because, again, they don't swing. They don't swing the bat up there. And when they do, ground out, weak pop out. It's absolutely ridiculous. I don't get it anymore. I don't get how anyone could sit here and tell me that this is an all or nothing offense. It just tells me you haven't been paying attention.
No.
Simple as that. I wish this team was more all or nothing. I wish, but instead it's trust the pixie dust to guide you through. That's all their hitting quote unquote philosophy is.
and and the other thing is like it works both ways because because people will say like listen, you have to stay patient up there. I get it, I agree with it to a certain point, and then I see the argument with the other thing. It's like, oh, you can't be too much all or nothing because when you look at you look at Yankee teams over the past couple of years, especially when they get in trouble in the playoffs and they have the same type of problem. You say, okay, it does hurt them, but to me it's a balance issue. It's a balance thing. You take both aspects of both different approaches because that's what the Dodgers do. Because look at last year when the Mets played the Dodgers in the NLCS. That is one of the most patient teams in the league. That team did not walk at all. I mean, sorry, they barely struck out at all. They walked so many times in that series, and they took so many close pitches because they have the right approach. But whenever there was a dangerous pitch to hunt in the zone, whether it was a fastball right down the middle, fastball at the knees, fastball up and in, boom, they were right on it and they hit it. So it's not about being, just completely pro patient up the plate, and then it's just not completely being pro all or nothing. It's about taking aspects of both philosophies, meshing them well, and just what's it called, being like compromising basically. Like I said, take the good aspects of both and mesh them, and then that's where you get a hitting philosophy like we see with the LA Dodgers.
And you know what it also tells me? Tells me the Dodgers have a hitting coach that does their homework on the pitchers they're facing because we saw it against the Phillies that series, and it was great that the Mets beat the Phillies that series, but they exploited a lot of their offensive flaws because they were a team similar to what we see with the Mets this year at points. They chase a lot. Or I mean, I should say the Mets chase a lot, but you get my point that they fall behind in counts a lot is more what I'm getting at. But the Phillies were a team that was more always chasing instead of, and the Mets were nibbling around the zone on them, and it worked. The Dodgers, you couldn't do that against them. And what did it do? It forced the pitchers to throw strikes, the Mets pitchers, that is. And like you said, the Dodgers were doing damage on it because they couldn't nibble around the zone against that team. And also, this point's true. If they were all or nothing, they'd be a lot more entertaining to watch. Unfortunately, they're not. And instead, you go to the ballpark and you watch, you look up at the scoreboard and you see like a billion 4-3 double play, or not double plays. You see a billion 4-3 ground outs listed on the scoreboard. You see them, a lot of backwards Ks. It's just stupid. And I see comments about the pitching. I'm not getting into the pitching this episode. I get that, Montas stinks. We're all annoyed that Montas stinks. I get that they don't get length from their starters. But when they're asked to be perfect every time they're out there, and I think David Peterson yesterday was a prime example of that, where it had to be mental with him once he allowed those runs that, oh, I can't let up another run because this offense isn't going to do shit. He'll never say it, and it will never be publicly said by any of the pitchers that the offense isn't good enough. But deep down mentally, he was thinking through that outing, man, I have to be perfect.
Yeah,
It takes a toll on them mentally.
I mean, prime example, second game of the series. They go up. They go up 2-0. And listen, no one can really blame Clay Holmes in that game, in the second game. Listen, I get that Clay Holmes has been shaky over the last couple weeks, last couple months, but listen, he had the one shaky inning where he allows 2 runs, but he kept them in that ball game. It was a 2-2 game. He gave you 5 good innings, and probably if he had been a starter for for a little bit more longer, and he had a bit more stamina, he could have given you 6 innings. But still, gave you 5 innings, only let up 2 runs, kept them in the ball game. What happens after the second inning? The offense did not score once, and then Tyler Rogers comes in, has a little bit of shaky inning, gives up some unlucky contact, gives up a run. But okay, you're only down 3-2. Score a run, score 2 runs, win the ball game. But no, they don't score. And the thing is, like, in the bottom of the 4th inning of that second game, Jeff McNeil leads off that inning with a single. After that, they get retired. 1, 2, 3, and then they did not get a hit until the bottom of the ninth, where Juan Soto hits that hits that solo home run to dead center field to break up Gavin Williams' no hitter. Like they went 13 in the third innings without a hit. And yesterday, like I said, we were both there. I felt so bad for Gavin Williams that he couldn't complete that no hitter because he pitched a hell of a game yesterday. And it's unlucky. And it just shows you like baseball's a game of inches. You make one bad pitch and boom, no hitters ruined. But I mean, he pitched a fantastic game yesterday, and it was at least nice to see that the Mets fans yesterday in the crowd, that they actually appreciated talent and they actually gave Gavin Williams a
It was
nice
the best
standing
start we've seen
ovation.
at Citi Field.
Yeah, they gave him a nice standing ovation after we came out of that ball game. Listen, it's baseball, but it's just again, you go 13 in the third innings without a hit. That's sad. That really is.
Yep. It's just like, and someone commented, how do you think Skeens feels with the point that I brought up before? I mean, we saw it with DeGrom too. We saw the exact same thing. It's ridiculous. Again, I'm not going to sit here and blame any of the pitchers. I'm just not. You are asking these guys to be perfect every single time they go out there. You're asking the bullpen to not make a single mistake anytime they're out there. And even though I've been pissed off and criticized the pitching at times, there is also more of the truth that's, again, score runs. Score runs. This team has way too much money invested into their offense. That is how they are built, to score runs. We talked about it in the offseason. Oh, well, this rotation, all they have to do is go out there and give, 3 or 4 earned run ball consistently, and that should be a great spot for this team to win baseball games. We said it all offseason long, and it's not the case because this offense sucks. And Skeens doesn't have a $2 billion top 4 on his team, plus the $20 million going to Marte, plus the money that's going to Jeff McNeil. Yeah, exactly. I didn't even read this until I just made the point. They're built around their offense. And this is why we said earlier in the year, you, me, Matt, all of us said it. We don't care that it's great that they're winning games because of their pitching, but it's not going to last. Because as you say all the time, Carson, pitchers get paid to be hurt. You just cannot rely on that. Why do you think the Mariners went out there and got the bats that they did at the deadline? Not that I'm saying the Mets should have got bats at the deadline because, again, there wasn't really a lot out there, to be honest with you. And also, again, you need your top guys to show up even if you did make additions to the offense. But that's the point. It's the quality of wins that matters. That's the point.
Even if they did get a bat at the deadline, under Chavez here, the bat would whoever it was, unless they're an elite type of bat, which even with Soto, we've seen him come here and his numbers drop a little bit. Bats come here to die. So until Chavez goes and until a new hitting philosophy comes in, don't expect like any type of bat to come here and just be like a huge impact right away. It's not going to happen. That's why when I see people like on Twitter per se, and listen, I'm not saying I'm not going at them, but when they're saying like, oh, call up Carson Bench, guys like that. No, don't call Carson Bench. Keep him as far away from this fucking cocksucker as you can. I don't want Carson Bench anywhere near Eric Chavez. Let him develop in Double A. Let him go to Triple A. Keep him as far away. I don't want him being up here anytime soon. Unless Chavez goes, fine. But until then, keep him far away.
Yeah, get Schwarber here, and I can't wait for Chavez to make him a 15 home run bat because he's putting up like 40 to 50 home runs this year. No, that's not a good year. This batting average is too low, guys.
He's not
His
playing the
batting
game
average
the
is
right
too
way.
low. He's not putting a good enough season up. He needs to learn how to play the game the right way.
Yeah. One of the front runners for the NL MVP this year and not playing the game the right way, according to Eric Chavez.
Nope. He needs to be a lot better. He needs to focus on his average. Yeah, I mean, Mullins hasn't put together competitive at bats either. See, that's the thing. Like, again, that's also the difference where it's like you brought up the Dodgers before. I mean, if Cedric Mullins went to the Dodgers, I'm sure the Dodgers would have Cedric Mullins raking right now. Not at an elite level, but just being what Tommy Edman was last year, where he's just a pain in the ass to go against type of hitter right now. But here, I mean, they probably just told him, go out there and have fun, kid. Go out there and
Whatever
hit some
happens,
singles,
happens.
buddy. And if you don't, you're going to get benched.
Yeah, that's same with the AAA hitting coach. Carson just put it in the chat. JP RN Sibia. Get him up here. Like I said, what's the worst that happens? He doesn't correlate. Well, okay. Well then send them back down AAA and get a replacement. Can't be worse than Chavez. I can't believe that. There's just no way.
I don't know if there's much else to add. I think I've got a lot of my frustration out from because this was really more of a I need a therapy session to freaking rant about this. This has been boiling since yesterday for me. Even after I ended the post game the other night, I still have my blood boiling. I really don't know what else I could say anymore, and it's just getting to a point where I have no expectations going into this Milwaukee series, and I have a feeling that I'm going to come back to this microphone and be screaming about the same exact issues, and they still will keep the hitting coach around. And oh, by the way, this could be territory where the Mets fall out of a playoff spot because the Reds have a series coming up against the Pirates, a 4-game series, and the Mets are playing the best team, arguably, in the National League in the Milwaukee Brewers. So it's getting to a point where by the end of this weekend, they might not be a playoff team.
No, they're getting for me, they're getting swept in Milwaukee unless they show me otherwise. Because one of the
And
games
they're out of first place by the end of the weekend. The Pirates are at least winning 3, or the Reds are winning 3 against the Pirates at least.
because one of the games, Frankie Montas is pitching. So that's an automatic loss right there.
Yep.
And then Sanga's pitching the first game. He struggled. Could he bounce back? Sure, but he needs to show that he could be better.
And
And then
Brandon Woodruff's also good, and this team can't hit.
And then Shaman is pitching the third game, which well, listen, I get that Manai had that shaky fifth inning in the game against Cincinnati or the game against Cleveland, but I'm more willing to think that's just he just had a bad inning. So I think I'm not too worried about Manai pitching that game. It's just again, does the offense go out there and give him support? Probably not.
Nope. And like I said, I mean, the pitchers they're going against too are this team can't hit any pitcher to begin with, but going against the pitchers that they are, I mean, especially Woodruff tonight, he is going to absolutely carve this offense. So they're going to be out of a spot by the end of the weekend, more likely than not, unless something drastic changes in that room. Which again, we've been saying this all year long, so they haven't gave any of us a reason to believe that something is drastically going to change. But all I know is that they're in legit danger of being out of a spot by the end of the weekend, and I think they're going to because I don't think the Reds lose more than one game to the Pirates this weekend. Genuinely don't. And they have the tiebreaker. So wonderful. Do you have anything else to add though before we wrap up the episode? Because we're not I mean, we kind of previewed the series coming up. They're probably going to get swept. There's really nothing else to address other than we're going to be reiterating these points, I'm sure, tonight or tomorrow night after the game.
Yeah, good thing there's no game today. I needed a break from Mets baseball for a day for 24 hours. So, yeah, good thing there's no game today. But I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, listen. Last thing I'll say is fire Chavez, disgrace to baseball. disgrace to this organization. Fuck him. I hope he gets fired. I hope he never gets another job in baseball. And yeah, that's it.
We're gonna wrap things up here. Thank you everyone for watching. I'm glad this was therapeutic for a lot of people. Go check out Mets Weekly if you want the therapy to continue, because I'm sure Carson's gonna reiterate a lot of our points, as well as expand on it with a lot of the stats that he probably deep dived into going into the episode. So go check out Mets Weekly to hear expanded thoughts. But thank you everyone for tuning in and watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe, turn on your notifications so you know when we upload or go live here on the channel. And we'll see you guys in the next one.